Weatherbound is my heart and soul project. Every day, thinking, plotting, planning, structuring, and actually drawing. I think my favorite thing to do is to sit down and structure a narrative. It is so satisfying when everything comes together, falls into place. You just get that yes. You just know it's right. To summarize, what is this project? So it's a graphic novel series. That just means it's using illustration instead of written words. Doesn't mean it's graphic. It's actually pretty family friendly. I've had a couple people think that it meant it was rated M. That sort of gave me a chuckle. So it's set in our modern world. So there's people who can control the elements of Earth, and their job is to tame the elements. And in particular, we follow 3 elementals who are wind, rain, and lightning as they travel around and they're chasing storms and taming them as well. It's their secret job. On the outside, they would just be meteorologists or storm chasers, but if you know, then they're also taming the storms. There's so many things I want to say. Okay, this is what Weatherbound is really about. But I have to hold back a bit because I'd just be spoiling everything. The biggest thing I can say is that it's about living a balanced life. So then that sort of gets to this idea of what if there were people who could control these things. But in most fantasy stuff that I see, everyone has these massive scale powers. You see like one character create an entire thunderstorm, and you see a character just whip up a tornado. I just can't get on board with that, at least not fully. So what I wanted to do with mine was scale it down. We have these elementals who can control the elements, but even they struggle to get these things under control. I have an affinity for the flawed character, who's morally good, who has the self-sacrificing traits, but is just messing up. That sort of cultivates in Aiden. At the beginning of the first book, we have Aiden with no friends. She's committed to just becoming a storm chaser, just live the dream. That's it. Gets caught up and realizes that she doesn't want to have that dream if it means leaving these few friends that she's made. So as volume 1 carries on, she's trying to figure out how these relationships actually work, what to do, what not to do, and makes mistakes along that road. Meanwhile, we also have Layla, who's the optimist, who's the bright and bubbly one, controls the wind, but she's also sort of carrying this weight that, she goes out of her way to meet everyone, but she's having trouble finding someone who sticks, and sort of chalking that up to, well, I'm not good enough. Using her own self-doubt to just explain away why she hasn't kept friends around. So if each of them are supposed to be symbolic of their element, Aaron is definitely his. We have Aiden, who is lightning and is chaotic, reckless. Layla is a wind. She's very airy, very carefree, seemingly. And then Aaron encompasses a dark, gloomy, rainy day. Very introverted, very focused on deep thought, but at the same time that can sometimes be calming presence that the other two need. I know a lot of people who I know have sort of taken to calling me like, oh, ask the weather girl. It's kind of funny. I'm not anything close to any sort of professional meteorologist. By far, definitely not. Nor do I have any interest to be an actual meteorologist, despite what many people who know me seem to think. But what I do love is just the feelings and thoughts and everything that comes with nature, with storms. You get something bigger than yourself, bigger than anything. Nothing can compare. I love everything about this whole process. This is actually write out each part of the story like a novel, and then I turn that into the comic pages, and then I write the final script after everything is actually drawn. I usually spend around 8 to 10 weeks actually drawing each part. If it's around 70 pages, if we're looking at one of the longer ones, like 120 pages, those are 12 weeks, and that's just the artwork itself. Graphic novels are not often produced by a large studio. There's many cases where it's just a few people working on it, and there's many cases where it's just one person working on it. And in my case, it's just me. I can't leave out that, my friends and family, they do help me tremendously, which I'm very, very ever thankful for. I've been able to get their input, their thoughts before I'm putting pencil to paper. But at the end of the day, it's as much as I can explain the story to people I'm with, no one really knows it the same way, which can be good when you're looking for different perspectives. But at the end of the day, there's going to be one vision, one way it's going to get told. It's a very long form series. I have a lot planned for the future, but I also have a definite end point. It's not one that just sort of keeps going on and on and on. I'm just coming up with new stuff on the spot. It does have a fully structured plot, overarching, and it has a definite end point. I think the biggest challenge is when you're working alone, you really, really have to be your own worst critic. You have to be extremely hard on yourself in order to get the right product. You can't just write up a script and say, oh, well, it's what I felt at the moment, so it's good, right? No, you have to go back, you have to structure that meticulously. You have to look at every story beat, the mood in each scene. Does it end on a positive? Does it end on a negative? Is it changing throughout each scene? Is there a constant build towards the climax of this part? Where's all the character beats, or how they grow by the end? Where's the tension in each scene? There has to be some sort of conflict in every single scene. There has to be a purpose for every scene also. I think my weakest point in my first book is definitely the way the dialogue is written. I'm not afraid to admit that when I go over my first book again, I have some cringe moments. I'm like, oh, I could have worded that better. That didn't really flow, or why would they say that right then, and stuff like that. But that's part of the process, and I can't be ashamed of where I started. A major part of this project is the growth. I didn't want to wait to start. I just wanted the first book to be the best that I could do at the time, and good enough to start the story. I was 19 when I first published the first book. I've got a long ways to go, but I can't wait, because I've already seen tremendous growth over these first couple books. I'm thrilled. I'm excited to see what it's going to end up as. How much farther can I go? With many people who I've talked to about stories, I love to emphasize structure, structure, structure. What is your story's beginning, middle, end? What is it? What is it at its core? Why does it matter? I think that's the most important thing, and the most important step that you can take towards actually having a story that's presentable. You can have all these details in your head all you want, but if you can't put that into a story structure, you're not going to have anything. Put pen to paper and figure out your structure. Number 1, tell your story. And number 2, tell it to the best of your ability. Some people act like it's a bad thing to be really tough on yourself, to be your own worst critic, but I don't think so at all. I think that's your greatest strength. As long as you can have those moments where you can step back and be proud of what you've done. Just like everything in life is a balance. Balance how much you're proud of your own work and how much you criticize it.